house on the hill is located on the outskirts of a small town. From the moment it was built, it attracted attention with its strange aura and terrible rumors associated with it. Locals claim that strange and terrible events take place in the house, and therefore most of them avoid passing by this place, especially after sunset. Stories about the house on the hill go back decades. Some speak of vague figures seen in the windows of the house. Others claim to have heard eerie screams and moans coming from its depths. The few who boldly ventured inside never returned, and their disappearance remained a mystery. The daredevils who decided to explore the house claimed that they felt the presence of otherworldly forces in its dark corridors. The shadows moved on their own. The air was saturated with the smell of decay, and cold fragrant drafts penetrated the walls. It seems that the house itself lived and breathed its own rules. One day, a young couple named Jake and Sarah decided to figure out the secrets of the house on the hill. They were convinced that all these stories were just local legends and rumors, and did not believe in the existence of the other world. Their curiosity overcame their fear, and they decided to spend the night in the house to find out the truth. Sarah and Jake armed themselves with flashlights, cameras, and some equipment to detect signs of supernatural activity. When they entered the house, they felt as if they were imitating watching a trap into which they themselves had fallen. Sarah and Jake continued to explore the house on the hill, but each step brought them more anxiety. Their flashlights illuminated dark corridors, the walls of which were covered with cracked paint. The sounds of creaking and rustling followed them around the house, causing the feeling that someone or something was watching them. After several hours of research, Sarah and Jake decided to go down to the basement, where, according to rumors, the most mystical part of the house was located. The basement was cold and damp, with low vaulted ceilings and old brick walls. A door opened in front of them, leading to a gloomy room lit only by the light of their flashlights. As they moved further into the room, they noticed strange symbols painted on the walls. In the center of the room stood an ancient table, on which lay an open book with ancient symbols. Suddenly, Sarah heard a soft whisper that seemed to be right in her ears. She turned around and saw a dark figure in the corner of the room, but before they could react, the figure disappeared into the shadows. Their hearts beat with fear, and Sarah and Jake decided to leave the basement and return to the surface. But when they went up the stairs and opened the door, they found that the whole house had changed. The corridors became a maze, confusing and unrecognizable. Every step they took seemed like an endless journey into a world of darkness and nightmare. Fear gripped them completely. They lost their orientation, and the presence of the unknown increased with every second. The terrible forces in the house on the hill were becoming more and more apparent. Sarah and Jake heard rustling and footsteps, but did not see any figures or signs of life around. Every time they tried to get out of one corridor, they found themselves in another, as if the house was changing its structure, playing its sinister game with them. Sarah and Jake's nerves were stretched to the limit. They felt that they could no longer continue this struggle with unknown forces. It was then that they heard a shrill scream from afar. The sound made their hearts freeze. They decided to follow the scream, hoping it would lead them to the exit. As a result, after a long wandering through endless corridors and ominous rooms, Sarah and Jake came out into a large hall. In the center of the hall stood a huge, ancient wooden door with carved symbols. The scream grew louder, coming from behind the door, and they felt that their lives depended on what was behind it. Sarah and Jake exchanged glances. Fear reflected on their faces, but their determination did not disappear. They decided to take a chance and open the door, hoping that it would lead them back to the real world. Trying to open the door, they felt a powerful gust of wind, and the darkness inside the hall was replaced by bright light. When the door opened, they saw a sunny landscape and green hills in the distance. Sarah and Jake left the house on the hill, feeling that they had survived a terrible adventure. They could never forget the horrors they experienced inside the house again, and they told their story, warning other people against getting to know this cursed place.